This is the ghetto, y'all. Showing up now.
If you're going to be married to a musician, you have to understand that touring, that's just part and parcel of the industry. But I'm a traditionalist.
I went to see him once. He was in one of the private hospitals in the city. Donny was sitting there at the piano with his cap on and his robe and his pajamas. And he was just playing.
Donny Hathaway never married, and now we finally know why. While other R&B legends serenaded women on stage and boasted about their love lives, Donny stayed quiet. Whispers suggest he was gay, but in an unforgiving world, he couldn't live his truth openly.
One time we were out eating, and he looked at a young lady over the next table, and he told her that she needed to go home and take care of her kids and stuff like that. He didn't even know the woman.
He also had a lifelong battle with schizophrenia, faced betrayal from close friends, and had a suspicious death that still doesn't sit right with fans.
It was a well-kept secret. When you know now about the medical condition, and you say, I see now why so many things happen.
Now, was he really gay? And could that, and the extra problems he faced, be why he never got married until it was too late? Did he kill himself because he couldn't bear to hide his sexuality anymore? Let's get into it. Donny Hathaway was one of the greatest soul singers of his time, but there's something unusual about how he presented himself. Back then, many male singers would talk a lot about women in interviews. They'd flirt on stage and try to look sexy for the women in the crowd. But Donny was different. He never really showed off a romantic image. Even though he was married to Lalah, he didn't speak much about her in public. He didn't brag about love or act like a ladies' man. Some people have wondered if he was hiding something about who he really was. In a time when male singers were expected to look desirable to women, Donny didn't follow that path. And for some, this silence makes them think there was more going on than what we saw. When you listen to Donny's music, you'll notice something interesting. He sings with so much feeling, pain, love, and longing. But he almost never says who he's singing to. He doesn't mention a woman's name or use words like girl or baby as many other singers did. Songs like Giving Up. And I Love You More Than You'll Ever Know are full of emotion, but they leave out the gender of the person he's singing about.
Is that any way for a man to carry on?
For people who know how some artists have had to hide their true selves, this is familiar. In the past, many singers who were not straight had to keep it secret. They couldn't openly say who they loved. So their songs were written in a way that anyone could relate to, but also helped them stay safe. That's why some people today think Donny may have done the same. In the music world, people talk quietly about things they don't want in the spotlight. These whispers are sometimes called whisper networks. In Donny's case, some people in the soul and R&B world have said things that hint at him having a complicated personal life. They don't come out and say it clearly. Instead, they use soft words or hints that only certain people might catch. These whispers have never shown up in public interviews or news stories, but they haven't gone away either. They've continued for years, passed from one person to another. Some believe there is truth in these quiet talks, even if nothing has ever been confirmed. There is a theory that Donny lived two different lives. Fans call it the one-room, two-worlds idea. On the outside, he looked like a church-going family man who sang gospel and soul music. That was the life everyone saw. But behind closed doors, some think he had another life. One where he could be more himself, but it had to stay hidden. This theory is not proven, but it helps some people make sense of the pain and sadness in his music. Donny often seemed like someone who was carrying a heavy burden. People who feel caught between two worlds, like being part of one community while hiding something important, say they relate deeply to Donny's story and feelings. Donny had a serious mental illness called schizophrenia.
One time we were out eating, and he looked at a young lady over the next table, and he told her that she needed to go home and take care of her kids and stuff like that. He didn't even know the woman.
He was sent to the hospital more than once because of it, but the records from those hospital stays are private. No one outside his doctors and close family has seen them. Some people think those records might hold secrets about Donny's inner life. Maybe he talked about things he couldn't share with the world, like his true feelings or identity. Of course, this is only guesswork, but for people trying to understand his life, they feel like these missing pieces could explain some of his struggles.
One of the things the psychiatrist mentioned was that he felt that Donny felt that Lalah could see through him.
Some fans and scholars, especially in the queer community, believe that Donny may have felt deep pain because he couldn't be open about who he was. Back then, if a black man said he wasn't straight, he could lose everything: his job, his place in the church, even his family. This doesn't mean his mental illness was caused by hiding something, but it's possible that the stress of hiding and living with rejection made his illness even worse. His death by suicide broke many hearts. For some, it feels like part of his sadness may have come from not being able to live his full truth.
I understand that he had schizophrenia, right? Yeah, I didn't know that at the time, but I loved him. We were always together. We'd come by and hang out and talk.
Donny's daughter, Lalah Hathaway, is also a singer. She honors her father through her music, but she doesn't talk much about his personal life. Some queer fans see this silence as a quiet way of protecting him. Maybe she knows something but wants to keep it private out of respect. Or maybe she just wants people to focus on his music, not rumors. No one knows for sure. But this silence adds to the mystery around Donny's life and who he really was inside. Donny needed someone to believe in him and help open the right doors. Some people didn't like how fast he was rising. They felt jealous of his talent and success, even though he had worked very hard to get where he was. One person who believed in Donny was a well-known guitarist named Phil Upchurch. Phil had already made a name for himself in the music world and had many connections. When he heard Donny sing, he knew that Donny had something special. Phil didn't keep this to himself. He helped Donny get an opportunity to work with Chess Records. This was a big moment for Donny, but an even bigger one came in 1969. That year, he recorded his first real song. It was a duet with a singer named June Conquest. The song was called I Thank You Baby.
I like to tell you in my own sweet way, you really gotta hold on, baby.
And was released under a record label called Curtom Records. This label was owned by Curtis Mayfield, a famous music producer and artist.
Pardon me, brother, as you stand in your glory.
Even though Donny was thankful for this chance, working with Curtis wasn't always easy. Both Donny and Curtis were very smart and had strong opinions about music. They often clashed. Donny felt like Curtis was trying to control his music too much. He wanted more freedom to create songs in his own way. He didn't want someone else making decisions for him. So, Donny asked to leave Curtom Records. Curtis agreed, and Donny walked away to follow his own path. After leaving Curtom, Donny wanted to do things his way. He called up his old friend Rick Powell. They had known each other for a long time and trusted each other. Together, they started a company called Don Powell Publishing. Donny didn't waste any time. He began working on new songs with another talented musician named Leroy Hudson. Some of the songs they made together were The Ghetto,
Trying time.
and Our Ages, or Our Hearts.
Tell me what's it gonna be? Oh, my darling.
Donny was full of ideas and energy, ready to take his music career to the next level. But again, some people didn't like how fast he was moving forward. His success was starting to bother others in the business. At the same time, Roberta Flack, another talented singer, was starting to shine.
It's killing me softly with this song.
Like Donny, she had studied at Howard University. A famous musician named Les McCann discovered her and helped her get a record deal with Atlantic Records. Roberta's first album was called First Take, and it became very popular.
Ooh, in my head.
Two of the songs on her album were written by Donny, Trying Times.
Trying times is what the world is tough.
And Our Ages or Our Hearts.
It makes no difference.
This helped Donny get noticed by powerful people at Atlantic Records. One of the most important people at Atlantic was Jerry Wexler. He liked Donny's music and wanted to sign him and Rick to Atco Records, which was part of Atlantic. Donny agreed, but only if he could still publish his own songs. Jerry said yes. Donny and Rick then started a new company called Don Rick Enterprises. Their first big song at Atco was The Ghetto, Part 1. It was a big success and started to climb the music charts. Donny's name was now becoming known across the country, but with more fame came more jealousy. Curtis was not happy. He now saw Atco Records as a rival. He convinced Leroy Hudson, Donny's music partner, to leave Donny and come back to work with him at Curtis Records. Donny was deeply hurt by this. He had worked closely with Leroy and saw him as a friend. But even though he was disappointed, Donny didn't stop. He kept going and kept writing music. During this time, Donny also recorded a Christmas song called This Christmas.
This Christmas, the fireside is blazing bright.
When it first came out, it didn't become a big hit. People didn't pay much attention to it. But many years later, in 1991, the song became a holiday favorite. It started playing on the radio every Christmas season and became one of his most loved songs. Because of the success of The Ghetto, Atco Records believed in Donny even more. They asked him to make a full album. Donny and Rick worked hard on that album. They called it Everything is Everything. This album showed how talented Donny truly was. He didn't just stick to one kind of music, he mixed soul, gospel, jazz, and other styles of black music. His sound was unique and touched many people. It proved that Donny was not just another singer. He was a true artist. Even though the road was tough and some people tried to stop him, Donny kept moving forward, guided by his passion and his music. But while Donny was helping others through his music, he was fighting his own personal battle in silence. Many fans didn't know that behind his beautiful songs, Donny was living with a serious mental illness that changed his life completely. Like I said earlier, Donny suffered from a mental condition called paranoid schizophrenia. In the early 1970s, Donny's mental health began to get worse. His behavior changed, and it became clear that something was wrong. Between 1973 and 1974, he had to go to the hospital several times because of his condition. Doctors eventually diagnosed him with paranoid schizophrenia. This condition is a serious brain disorder. When it is active, people can have trouble thinking clearly, may hear or see things that are not real, and may believe things that don't make sense. There is no cure for it yet, but doctors can give medicines to help control the symptoms. Still, it can be very hard to live with. Donny's wife, Lalah, once shared how serious his condition had become. She said Donny had to take many different medicines every day, sometimes dozens of pills. These medicines helped calm his mind and reduce the scary thoughts, but they also made him feel tired and less creative. Even though the medicine made it harder for him to make music, Donny still tried. On his better days, he could be very productive and write amazing songs. He also tried his best to be a good father to his children. But these good days came less often as time went on. His illness began to take over more and more of his life.
One of the things the psychiatrist mentioned was that He felt that Donny felt that Lalah could see through him.
Even as he struggled, Donny still made music. He released an album called Extensions of a Man.
You made me fall in love with you. Now I don't know just what I'm.
This album was praised by music critics and fans. People could feel the emotion and talent in every song. But soon after, Donny's health became worse again. He started to stay away from the public. He wasn't seen much and people began to talk. There were strange rumors. Some said he was hiding because he got into trouble with powerful people. Others believed he was being silenced for speaking out about civil rights. But none of these stories were ever proven to be true. It was clear that Donny was fighting a private war with his mind. When friends visited Donny in the hospital, they saw how serious his illness was.
I went to see him once. He was in one of the private hospitals in the city. Donny was sitting there at the piano with his cap on and his robe and his pajamas. And he was just playing.
He sometimes acted in strange ways, not because he wanted to, but because his brain was sick. Even during these times, Donny still found comfort in music. He would sit at the piano and play. Music was like a safe space for him, but the illness made it hard for him to have normal relationships. He and his wife separated, and he stopped working with his longtime singing partner, Roberta Flack, for a while. It was a very sad time in his life. Still, Donny didn't stop trying. In 1977, he and Roberta Flack got back together to make a song. The song was called The Closer I Get to You.
The closer I get to you.
They had both healed from their past problems and were able to work together again. The song turned out beautifully and became a big hit. It even earned them a Grammy nomination. Because of this success, they planned to make another album together. People were excited to hear more music from the two of them. It seemed like things were finally looking up for Donny. In January 1979, Atlantic Records helped Donny leave the hospital so he could record new songs for the duet album. But just being in the studio didn't make him better. One day, while recording, Donny suddenly had a very bad episode. He became scared and started yelling. He ran out of the recording booth. James M. Toome, one of the songwriters, found Donny hiding in a corner. Donny was shaking and crying, saying that people were trying to kill him and that a machine was stealing music from his brain. It was a heartbreaking moment that showed how deep his illness had become.
He was like huddled in a corner crying. And I said, Donny, I said, brother, what's up? He said, them two men, they're trying to kill me. I said, who? He said, white people. He said, they have my brain hooked up to a machine, and they're stealing my music and my sound.
On January 13th, 1979, Donny and Roberta were in the studio, working on more songs. Later that day, they had dinner together at Roberta's apartment with their managers. Everyone said Donny seemed happy that evening. He was smiling, laughing, and talking about their Grammy nomination. He seemed excited about the future. After dinner, Roberta drove Donny and his manager, Ed Howard, back to their hotel. Before Donny left the car, he made a joke about wanting more of the cake from dinner. Roberta smiled and promised to bring him some on Tuesday. They said goodbye, not knowing it would be their final moment together.
The phone was ringing. I answered the phone, and it was Roberta. She told me what had happened.
That night, Donny told Ed that he had something important to talk about. But before Ed could ask more, Donny got into the elevator. Ed thought Donny would call him later if it was really urgent. Around 11 p.m. that same night, a call came in to the police station. Someone had either fallen or jumped from the 15th floor of the Essex House Hotel in New York City. It was Donny. The police came quickly and looked at the scene. They said Donny had taken his own life. But some things didn't add up. When the police looked in Donny's hotel room, they found no suicide note. The room was locked from the inside. Nothing seemed out of place. His music tapes and papers were still there, but the window was wide open, even though it was a cold and rainy night. The safety glass from the window had been carefully placed on the bed, not broken or messy. It was all very strange. Something didn't feel right. Soon after, Ed got a call from hotel security. A guard came to his room and told him the sad news. Donny had died. Ed was heartbroken. He kept thinking about what Donny had wanted to tell him earlier.
And I don't know how you did it, but it was it's something that pain really is still in my heart,
When the news spread, people were shocked. Many didn't believe Donny had taken his own life. Fans and friends were confused and saddened. Rumors started again. Some thought Donny was killed by someone who saw him as a threat. Others believed people in the music business had something to do with it. There were even whispers that someone close to Donny may have wanted him gone. No one knew for sure, and the truth was never fully found.
It was such a shock. The music industry stopped for a minute.
Some believed that Donny's struggles with who he was as a person may have added to his sadness. There were rumors that Donny was confused about his sexual identity, and this may have clashed with his religious beliefs. This could have caused him deep guilt and pain. Others believed that he stopped taking his medication, which made his mental health worse. These struggles may have pushed him to a breaking point. But still, many people were unsure if it was really suicide or something else. At Donny's funeral, Reverend Jesse Jackson spoke to the crowd. He said maybe Donny's death was not what it looked like. He shared a story from Donny's childhood. Donny used to lean out of windows and pretend he was preaching to birds in the sky. He would imagine they were his audience. This story made people think that maybe Donny had not meant to die that night. Maybe it was a tragic accident, but nobody could say for sure. The mystery remained. Many famous people came to say goodbye at the funeral. Roberta Flack was there, crying for her lost friend. Stevie Wonder came too, along with Donny's mother, who was full of grief. Donny left behind 3 daughters, Lalah, Donald, and Kenya, who is also known as KK. 2 of his daughters became singers, just like their father. They are keeping his music alive. Donny's daughter Donta also started something called the Donny Hathaway Legacy Project. It helps artists who are struggling with mental health. This project honors Donny's memory and helps others who are facing the same kind of pain he went through. In the notes written for Donny's final album, one line stands out. It says, "Donny is no longer here, but the song, 'Someday We'll All Be Free,' gathers momentum as part of his legacy." That song meant a lot to Donny. When he heard the final version, he sat in the studio and cried. The song was that powerful. It moved him deeply. Edward Howard, who wrote the lyrics, said he had Donny in mind when he wrote it. He hoped the words would bring Donny comfort. Howard said, "Donny was a very troubled person. I hoped one day he would be free from all the pain he was carrying." Today, Donny's music still speaks to people. He may be gone, but his voice and story live on, reminding us that even those who seem strong and talented can be hurting inside.